Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, coming to you all with yet another out of theater reaction, but in the theater reaction at the same time. It's a little too cold to be doing a parking lot playback because if I do that, then, I just feel like I'm going to regret it. So rather than do that, I figured I'd just pop out of the theater, but still inside the theater. You get where I'm going with that. But yes, I'm coming to you all today with my thoughts on, if you can see, Better Man, which is co-written, produced, and directed by Michael Gracey and starring Jonno Davies and Robbie Williams. So this, of course, was an AMC Screen Unseen. I'm good for those. And I had heard some interesting rumblings about this film. I, unfortunately, am not familiar with Robbie Williams outside of, maybe like certain songs or certain music videos that have popped up from time to time, but not enough to tell you like specifically, oh, that's Robbie Williams. And I have to say, hearing that this was going to be a biopic that involved the main character or the person in question being portrayed with a CGI primate, didn't know how that was going to work, but yeah, it made for a very unique experience, I must say. You guys definitely know how I feel when it comes to narrative biopics. They mean well, but it's just something about that cinematic Wikipedia reel vibe that doesn't quite do it for me. And I will say that this film, again, much like A Complete Unknown, is trying its best to subvert that and just kind of give us that formula, but from a different perspective. And I will say that it does succeed, at least for a good amount of the film, in doing that. It doesn't necessarily feel like a trope. It doesn't feel like we're getting just the same beats in theory, not at first. But I do think that it does a good job creating some emotional depth. It does a great job with some of the musical numbers. Of course, this film is directed by Michael Gracey, who previously directed the film The Greatest Showman, a film that I did not think I was going to enjoy and is up there as one of my favorite movie musicals like ever. I mean, I'm telling you, that soundtrack, still gets played to this day. Got played nonstop. But yes, so I absolutely think he was the right person to take on a film like this with such unique visuals and such a just very quirky, over-the-top, in-your-face style. And I think that's something that really worked to this film's benefit. And I do think that the combination of Jonno Davies and Robbie Williams taking over and kind of, collaborating in bringing this aspect of Robbie Williams and his life to the big screen, I just think that works in a really seamless way. After a certain point, you kind of forget that you're watching chimpanzee/primate on screen, and it's wild how much you begin to relate and connect and appreciate what's going on there. So I do think that's something that actually worked, and I was shocked by that. However, I will also say that whereas the film maintains a lot of high energy at the beginning, like in the first hour, especially considering how well one particular aspect of his time with the group Take That entire sequence where he's performing with his bandmates, group members, I was so into that. I was like, okay, give me all of this. Keep it going. I think you got me. I think I'm hooked. And it does maintain that energy for a good amount of time afterwards, especially with all the visual transitions, the camera work. It really was something special. However, I think once we get to the halfway mark, it loses so much steam. It loses a lot of the diversity of storytelling. There's something that it starts to lose in what it's trying to capture in the story. And instead, it starts to rely on very familiar story beats, and it started to lose me very, very quickly. And I was so frustrated by that because when it's good, it's so good. That first hour, I was like, oh my gosh, this might be a contender. And I think going off of that first hour, it could be. But the thing is, there are so many repetitive aspects of the story, and there's too much of it that relies on that same old drug, sex, and rock and roll. And I get that's what happens. So you can't necessarily like get away from that, but there's such a different way of trying to tell that. And I think this film settles for doing it in a very obvious, somewhat tropey way. And I didn't really care for that. It does manage to recover at the end, and I think the 20 minutes once again was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. But at that point, it's the end. And there's pretty much a wrap on that. So I do think that if the film had managed to push deeper and dive deeper and help me understand more about Robbie and his mindset outside of these same repetitive story beats, I think this would have been way more effective, because that ending definitely got me again, but it's the ending. So we can't get back that last hour leading up to that point. So, and I think because of that, it doesn't feel like the runtime is earned. We just do a lot of, okay. And I think that Robbie Williams' life is very, very interesting, but this is something that I believe would have worked better as a documentary or as a docuseries. If you've seen my very recent top 10 favorite films of the year ranking, then you'll know I had a couple of documentaries on there, and one of them was a biopic about the late and great Frida Kahlo, the visionary, the legend Frida Kahlo. And I think whether it's something reaching way back to the past all the way to the present, you have to find a way to tell those stories with a certain level of care, a certain level of grace, and just a certain level of depth. And this film is trying to do that, but it doesn't quite succeed. So when it comes down to it, I absolutely am interested in learning more about Robbie Williams and his music, but I don't think this film gives me enough to feel that I learned everything there was to know and to really understand what makes him such a distinctive and unique artist. But at the very least, I did not walk on the AMC Screen Unseen. Look, time, money, gas, we're not playing games in 2025. So if this was something other than Better Man and I wasn't feeling it, I would have been out. But I stuck around, still appreciated some aspects of the experience. I'm ready to learn more, of course, do my own little deep dive, look up music on Spotify and all that. But overall, I don't think this is as great as it could have been. But as far as the AMC Screen Unseen, I'm not mad at it. So, once again, this is D, Movie Man, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.